The burning sky, the coffee was still warm in Commander Sarah. Chun's hand when the sky split open. She stood by the kitchen window of her San Francisco home, watching the morning fog roll across the bay. Her husband, David, was making pancakes. Their son, Michael, just 10 years old, sat at the table drawing pictures of spaceships. It was Saturday. It was supposed to be perfect. Then the shadows came. Sarah noticed it first. The sunlight dimmed, as if a cloud had passed overhead. But when she looked up, she saw something that made her blood turn cold. Objects were descending through the atmosphere. Hundreds of them. Massive shapes that blotted out the sky like a eclipse that would never end. "David," she said quietly. Her military training kept her voice steady, even as her heart began to race. "Take Michael to the basement. Now." David turned from the stove, his smile fading when he saw her face. He had been married to Sarah long enough to recognize that tone. He did not ask questions. He grabbed Michael's hand and moved toward the basement door. Sarah was already reaching for her phone when the first beam struck downtown. The light was so bright it burned after images into her vision. The sound came a second later, a roar that shook the house to its foundation. Through the window, she watched a column of fire rise into the sky where the financial district had been moments before. "Mom?" Michael's voice was frightened. He was standing at the basement door, refusing to go down without her. Sarah ran to them. She wrapped her arms around her son and looked at David. His face was pale but determined. They had talked about this possibility. Sarah worked in military intelligence. She knew Earth's defenses. She knew how unprepared humanity really was. "I love you," she said to both of them. "No matter what happens, remember that." David kissed her forehead. "We will get through this." "We always do." The second beam hit closer. The house shook violently. Windows shattered throughout the neighborhood. Car alarms screamed. People ran into the streets. Looking up at the alien ships that now filled the sky like a swarm of metal locusts, Sarah pushed her family toward the basement stairs. "Get down there. Stay away from the walls." "I need to." The third beam hit their street. Sarah felt herself lifted off her feet. The world became fire and noise and chaos. She hit something hard. The breath left her lungs. When she opened her eyes, she was lying in what used to be her living room. Half the house was simply gone. Smoke and dust filled the air. "David," she screamed. "Michael." She crawled through the rubble, her hands bleeding, her ears ringing. She found the basement door. It had been ripped from its hinges. The stairs beyond were collapsed. She dug frantically, throwing aside broken wood and shattered concrete. She found David first. He had shielded Michael with his body. They were both still, both silent. Sarah checked for pulses she knew she would not find. Her hands shook as she touched their faces. Her husband, son, her entire world. Something broke inside Sarah Chin in that moment. Not her spirit, not her will, something else. The part of her that believed in mercy. The part that believed enemies could be reasoned with. That part died with her family. She stood slowly. Around her, San Francisco was burning. The alien ships hung in the sky like dark gods, raining destruction on the city. She could hear screaming. So much screaming. But Sarah did not scream. She looked at the ships with eyes that held no tears. Only calculation. Only cold fury. She climbed out of the ruins of her home and started walking. She had nowhere to go. But she was Commander Sarah Chen of United Earth Defense, and she had work to do. The attack lasted 18 hours. When it ended, 70 major cities across the globe were gone. 3 billion people were dead. Earth's military had been crushed in the first 6 hours. The aliens, who called themselves the Krell Empire, landed ground forces and established occupation zones with brutal efficiency. Sarah spent those 18 hours gathering survivors. She found other military personnel in the ruins of the Presidio base. She found civilians who refused to give up. She led them into the hills east of the city, away from the Krell patrols. into old Cold War bunkers that the government had forgotten about. By the time the smoke cleared, she had 200 people under her command. Soldiers without weapons, civilians without homes, all of them broken, all of them angry. She stood before them in the dim light of the bunker. Her uniform was torn and bloody. Her face was covered in ash, but her voice was strong. "I will not lie to you," she said. "We have lost. Earth has fallen. Most of humanity is dead or enslaved. The Krell think this is over. They think we are finished." She paused, looking at each face in the crowd. Some were crying, some were blank with shock. Some burned with the same fury she felt. "They are wrong," Sarah continued. "This is not over. This is just the beginning. The Krell made a mistake today. They left some of us alive, and we are going to make them regret that for the rest of their miserable existence." A young soldier named Marcus spoke up. His arm was in a makeshift sling. "Commander, what can we do? We have no weapons, no ships, no way to fight back." Sarah smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We have something better than weapons, soldier. We have time. The Krell think we are defeated. They will grow comfortable, lazy, and while they celebrate their victory, we will be learning, studying, preparing. We will take everything they know and make it better. And when we are ready, we will take back our world." Another voice called out from the crowd. "How long will that take?" Sarah looked toward the bunker entrance, where the red glow of burning cities lit the night sky. "As long as it takes, days, months, years, I do not care. I will not rest until every Krell soldier is off our planet, until every ship is burning, until their empire understands what they have done." She turned back to the group. "But I need to know right now. Who is with me? Who is ready to fight a war we might not win? Who is ready to give everything for a chance? Just a chance to hit back?" Every hand went up. Every single one. Over the following weeks, more survivors found their way to Sarah's bunker. Word spread through hidden networks. Commander Chen was alive. Commander Chen was organizing. Commander Chen had a plan. The group grew to 500, then 1,000, then 5,000. Other cells formed in other cities, other countries. They all looked to Sarah for leadership. She gave it to them. The Krell had established their main base in what used to be Beijing. Their commander, a massive creature named Vrex, ruled Earth with casual cruelty. Humans were rounded up for slave labor. Resources were stripped from the planet. Anyone who resisted was executed publicly as a warning. But the Krell made one critical error. They underestimated human intelligence. Sarah organized teams to salvage Krell technology from battle sites. Every crashed ship was stripped for parts. Every dead Krell soldier had their equipment studied. Sarah brought together scientists, engineers, and military tacticians. She gave them one mission: understand the enemy. What they discovered changed everything. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a physicist who had survived the destruction of MIT, brought Sarah the first breakthrough 6 months into the occupation. They met in a hidden lab deep underground, in what used to be Colorado. Commander Jennifer said, her eyes bright with excitement despite the exhaustion on her face. "We have been analyzing the Krell power systems, and we found something incredible. They are not actually that advanced." Sarah frowned. "Their ships destroyed our entire defense fleet and ours. How is that not advanced?" Jennifer pulled up holographic displays of Krell technology. "They are powerful, yes, but they are old. Ancient, actually. The Krell have been using the same basic designs for thousands of years. They have not innovated. They have not improved. They found what worked and stopped evolving." She zoomed in on a power core schematic. "This reactor design is over 5,000 years old. It works, it is reliable. But it is also inefficient and predictable. Commander, we can do better. Much better." Sarah leaned forward, studying the displays. "How much better?" Jennifer smiled. "Give me 2 years and I will build you a reactor twice as powerful and half the size. Give me 3 years and I will give you weapons the Krell have never imagined. Oh? Sarah looked at the young scientist. You have 2 years, Dr. Walsh. Make them count. The work began in earnest. Underground facilities across the globe became research centers. Humans had one advantage the Krell had never considered. Humanity was young, desperate, creative, while the Krell had stopped innovating millennia ago. Humans had been pushing boundaries for their entire history. Sarah coordinated it all. She moved from base to base, always one. In hidden shipyards beneath the Pacific Ocean, human engineers were building vessels unlike anything Earth had ever produced. They used Krell technology as a foundation, but improved it with human innovation. The ships were smaller, faster, and deadlier than anything in the Krell fleet. In secret training facilities in the Australian outback, new soldiers were learning to fight. Not the way humans had fought before. Not with old tactics and predictable strategies. They learned to fight with the creativity and ruthlessness that only comes from having nothing left to lose, and in a command center buried. Commander Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display of Earth. Red dots marked every Krell installation, every ship, every garrison. She had been planning this moment for 3 years, refining it, perfecting it. Her second in command, Colonel James Richardson, stood beside her. He had lost his entire family in London. He understood Sarah's drive, her obsession. The fleet is ready, Commander James said quietly. All cells are in position. We can launch Operation Phoenix whenever you give the word. Gotta. Sarah stared at the display for a long moment. 3 years of preparation, 3 years of sacrifice. Thousands of people had died building weapons in secret, training in hidden bases, all leading to this moment. She thought of David and Michael. She thought of the 3 billion people who had died in the first attack. She thought of every human who had suffered under Krell occupation. Send the signal, Sarah said. Her voice was steady, cold, final. We strike at dawn. All targets simultaneously. No warnings. No mercy. James nodded and moved to execute the order. Sarah remained standing before the display, watching the red dots that represented the enemy. Soon, those dots would start disappearing. Soon, the Krell would learn what happens when you strike Earth first. The morning sun began to rise over the Pacific. It would be the last sunrise the Krell ever saw on Earth. Sarah allowed herself a small, grim smile. We are coming for you, she whispered to the enemy that could not hear her yet, but they would. Very soon, they would. The war was about to begin. The silent years, the Krell called them the silent years. 3 years when human resistance seemed to fade. When the survivors accepted their defeat, when Earth became just another conquered world in the vast Krell Empire, they could not have been more wrong. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the heart of what had been called Site Omega, a massive underground complex built beneath the Rocky Mountains. Before the invasion, it had been a backup government facility. Now it was the nerve center of humanity's resistance. And it was far larger than the Krell could imagine. The complex stretched for miles in every direction. Hundreds of chambers carved from solid rock. Power came from geothermal vents that gave off no surface signature. Air was recycled through systems the Krell scanners could not detect. 10,000 people lived and worked in this single facility. And it was just one of dozens scattered across the planet. Sarah walked through the main operations center, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Banks of computers lined the walls, all cobbled together from salvaged technology. Human engineers had learned to mask their electronic signatures, making their equipment invisible to Krell sensors. It was one of many small victories that would add up to something larger. Someone called out. Sarah waved her hand dismissively. As you were, we do not have time for formality. She approached the central holographic display where her senior staff waited. Colonel James Richardson was there, along with Dr. Jennifer Walsh and a dozen other key personnel. These were the people who had built humanity's hidden war machine. The people who had refused to accept defeat. Status report, Sarah said simply. James pulled up tactical displays. All resistance cells are operational. We have 17,000 trained soldiers ready for deployment. Another 30,000 in advanced training. Weapon stockpiles are at projected levels. Jennifer stepped forward next. The prototype ships are complete, Commander. 12 vessels built to our new specifications. We have named them the Phoenix class. Fast, stealthy, and armed with weapons the Krell will not see coming. Amaze? Sarah studied the ship designs. They were beautiful in their deadly simplicity. Sleek hulls covered in radar-absorbing materials. Engines that could outrun anything in the Krell fleet. And weapons that made her smile coldly. Tell me about the weapons, Doctor. Jennifer's face lit up with scientific enthusiasm. We started with Krell plasma technology, but completely redesigned the delivery system. Their weapons are powerful but slow to fire and even slower to recharge. Ours fire 3 times faster with the same destructive power. We also developed kinetic railguns, simple metal projectiles accelerated to extreme velocity. The Krell abandoned this technology centuries ago as primitive. They have no defenses against it. And the power systems? Sarah asked. Our fusion reactors are 40% more efficient than Krell designs. A Phoenix-class ship can operate for 6 months without refueling. A Krell equivalent needs to refuel every 6 weeks. Commander, we did not just match them. We surpassed them. Sarah nodded slowly. This was what she had been waiting for. What about their artificial intelligence restrictions? A younger scientist named Dr. Kenji Yamamoto spoke up. The Krell had a war with AI systems thousands of years ago. Since then, they have refused to use any form of artificial intelligence. It is actually a religious prohibition in their culture. We have no such restrictions. He pulled up new displays showing complex code structures. We have developed tactical AI systems that can process battle data and suggest strategies in real time. Not autonomous weapons. The humans always make the final decision. But the AI can analyze situations faster than any Krell commander can think. Sarah felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Hope. Real hope. You are telling me we have technological superiority? In several key areas, yes, Jennifer confirmed. The Krell are like a champion boxer who learned one perfect punch and never learned anything else. That punch is devastating. But if you know it is coming, if you are faster and more adaptable, you can win. James added, we also have the element of surprise. Vrex thinks we are scattered rebels with stolen weapons. He has no idea we have built an entire fleet, an entire army. He thinks he is hunting rats. He does not realize he is standing in a tiger's cage. Sarah looked around at her team. These people had given 3 years of their lives to this moment. Many had lost families just like she had. All of them had one thing in common. They refused to quit. There is something else you should know, Sarah said quietly. I have been in contact with other resistance leaders around the world. The Chinese cells, the African Union remnants, the European underground. Everyone has been coordinating. When we strike, it will not be one attack. It will be hundreds. Simultaneous strikes across the entire planet. She pulled up a new display showing the global network. Red lines connected resistance cells across every continent. We will hit every Krell installation at the same moment. Their command centers, their supply depots, their barracks, their shipyards. In 1 hour, we will cut off their head and break their back. Marcus, the young soldier who had questioned her 3 years ago, was now a captain. What about civilian casualties? The Krell have built their bases near human population centers. Sarah's face hardened. We have accounted for that. Strike teams will evacuate civilians where possible. But we cannot let concern for casualties stop us. The Krell certainly did not care about civilians when they bombed our cities. The room went quiet. Everyone knew Sarah was right, but it still hurt to hear. However, Sarah continued, her voice softening slightly, we are not them. We will minimize civilian deaths wherever possible. We will give warnings. We will create evacuation corridors. We fight to win, but we do not forget our humanity in the process. James pulled up the operational timeline. Commander, if we are going to do this, we need to decide now. The window of opportunity is closing. Krell reinforcements are scheduled to arrive in 4 months. If we wait much longer, we will be facing twice the enemy forces. Sarah looked at the timeline. At the 3 years of preparation crystallized into one decisive moment. She thought about David and Michael. About the 3 billion dead. About every human suffering under Krell occupation. We launch Operation Phoenix in 72 hours, she said firmly. Send encrypted signals to all cells. Full coordination. Every target hits simultaneously. No one moves early. No one hesitates. She looked at each person in the room. 3 years ago, I promised you we would take back our world. That promise is about to be kept. Send the word. Humanity strikes back at dawn. The next 72 hours were a whirlwind of final preparations. Weapons were distributed. Soldiers moved into position. Scientists ran last-minute checks on equipment. The entire global resistance network held its breath, waiting for the signal. Sarah spent those hours visiting different. She gestured at her screens, just making sure everything's perfect. We only get one chance at this. Sarah sat down beside her. It was rare for her to be this informal, but Jennifer had earned it. I wanted to thank you. For everything you have done these past 3 years, I know it has not been easy. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. I lost my wife in the Boston attacks, Commander. She was a teacher. She died protecting her students. So no, it has not been easy. But this work, knowing that we are going to hit back, that has kept me going. We all have our reasons, Sarah said softly. She pulled out the photo of David and Michael. This is what I fight for. Not just revenge, but so that no other mother has to lose her child. No other spouse has to die alone. We end this so it never happens again. Jennifer looked at the photo. They would be proud of you. Sarah's throat tightened. I hope so. I have done things these past 3 years that I am not proud of. Made hard choices. Sacrificed good people. All for this moment. That is what leadership means, Jennifer said. Carrying the weight so others do not have to. You have carried all of us, Commander. And tomorrow, we will carry you. The night before Operation Phoenix, Sarah could not sleep. She walked through the empty corridors of Site Omega, her footsteps echoing in the darkness. She ended up in the memorial chamber, room where the names of the 3 billion dead were carved into the walls. She found David's and Michael's names among the millions. She traced the letters with her fingers. Tomorrow, she whispered. Tomorrow, it begins. I hope I am doing the right thing. I hope this works. But even if it does not, I need you to know that I tried, that I did not give up, that I fought for you until the very end. She heard footsteps behind her. James Richardson entered the chamber, also unable to sleep. Nervous? He asked, terrified. Sarah admitted. 3 years of planning comes down to one day. If we fail, there will be no second chance. The Krell will hunt down every survivor. Humanity will truly be finished. James stood beside her, looking at the wall of names. Then we do not fail. Simple as that. We have prepared as well as possible. We have good people, good weapons, good strategy. Now we trust in that preparation. Sarah nodded. You have been with me since the beginning, James, since those first days in the bunker. Why? Why did you follow me? Because you never gave up, James said simply. When everyone else wanted to surrender, to accept our fate, you kept fighting. You gave us hope when we had none. That is worth following anywhere, Commander. The two of them stood in silence, surrounded by the names of the dead, waiting for the dawn that would change everything. At 0530 hours, the signal went out. Across the globe, resistance cells received the encrypted message. 2 words that meant everything. Phoenix rising. Sarah stood in the operations center, surrounded by her staff. The holographic displays showed the entire planet. Red dots for Krell positions, blue dots for human strike teams. In exactly 30 minutes, those dots would collide. All teams report ready, James announced. Ships are launching from underwater bases. Ground forces are moving into position. Air support is scrambling. Commander, we are go for Operation Phoenix. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. The moment 3 years of suffering and sacrifice had built toward. She activated the global communications network. Her face appeared on screens in every resistance cell worldwide. "This is Commander Sarah Chen to all forces," she said, her voice steady and strong. 3 years ago, the Krell attacked our world. They killed 3 billion of our people. They thought they had broken us. They were wrong. Today, we show them what humanity really is. Today, we take back our world. All teams, you are clear to engage. For Earth. For the fallen. Strike now. The blue dots on the display began to move. High above the Pacific Ocean, 12 Phoenix-class ships burst from underwater launch facilities. Their sleek hulls cut through the water and then the air, accelerating impossibly fast toward space. Krell orbital sensors detected them too late. By the time warnings reached the occupation forces, the human ships were already among them. In Beijing, ground teams emerged from tunnels beneath the Krell Command Center. They moved with perfect coordination, guided by AI systems that tracked every enemy soldier. Plasma rifles and railguns opened fire. Krell guards fell before they could sound alarms. In what remained of New York, missiles launched from hidden silos. They were not explosive missiles. They were electronic warfare weapons designed to disable Krell communications. In seconds, the entire regional network went dark. Across Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas, the same scenario played out. Human forces struck with precision and fury. The Krell, comfortable in their occupation, were caught completely off guard. In his command center in Beijing, Vrex watched his displays with growing horror. Red alert signals flashed from every installation. Reports streamed in of attacks everywhere at once. How was this possible? The humans were defeated. They had no fleet, no weapons, no organization. "Get me reinforcements," Vrex roared. "Contact the fleet. We need support now." His communications officer looked up with panic in his eyes. "Commander, we cannot reach the fleet. All communications are jammed. We are cut off." Outside the command center, explosions echoed through the complex. Krell soldiers rushed to defensive positions, but they were facing an enemy they did not understand. An enemy that fought with tactics they had never encountered. An enemy that had been preparing for this exact moment. Sarah watched it all unfold on her displays. Blue dots, overwhelming red dots across the globe. The plan was working. "They were actually winning," Commander James said urgently. "Krell orbital platforms are targeting our ships. The Phoenix Squadron is engaging." Sarah pulled up the space battle display. The human ships moved like dancers, dodging Krell weapons, fire with impossible agility. Their railguns spoke, sending solid projectiles through space at relativistic speeds. When the rounds hit Krell ships, they punched straight through shields and armor. One by one, the orbital platforms exploded in bright flashes. "Railguns performing beyond expectations," Jennifer reported from the weapons station. "Krell shields cannot stop solid matter traveling at 0.7 light speed. They are designed for energy weapons." A tactical AI system chimed in with a synthetic voice. "Analysis complete. Krell formation patterns follow doctrine dated approximately 8,000 years old. Predictive algorithms suggest optimal strike points with 94% confidence." The Phoenix Squadron adjusted their attack based on the AI recommendations. Within minutes, the orbital battle was over. 12 human ships had destroyed 30 Krell vessels without taking a single loss. On the ground, the momentum continued. Krell bases fell one after another. Their soldiers fought bravely, but they were facing an enemy that had studied them for 3 years. Every weakness had been identified. Every tactical pattern had been analyzed. The Krell fought by the book. Humans rewrote the book. By noon, Operation Phoenix was a complete success. Every major Krell installation on Earth was destroyed or captured. Vrex himself was taken prisoner when human forces breached his command center. The massive Krell commander stood before Sarah, his claws bound, his pride shattered. "You should not have been able to do this," Vrex said, his voice filled with disbelief. "We are the Krell Empire. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. You are primitives. How? Sarah looked at him with cold eyes. You attacked our world. You killed our families. And then you got comfortable. You stopped watching, stopped preparing. You thought we were animals to be dominated. She stepped closer. You were right about one thing. We are animals. Humans are predators, Rex. And you just learned what happens when you corner a predator and kill its young. She turned to her soldiers. Take him away. He will stand trial for his crimes. As Rex was led away, James approached Sarah. Commander, it is not over yet. The Krell will send reinforcements from their home systems. This was just Earth. The real war is about to begin. Sarah nodded. I know. But now we have ships, weapons, and most importantly, we have proven that we can win. The Krell thought this world was easy prey. Now we are going to take the fight to them. She looked up at the sky where her Phoenix ships orbited. We struck Earth first. Now we are going to show the galaxy what that means. The silent years were over. The war had truly begun. And humanity was no longer prey. Humanity was the hunter. The reckoning dawned. The Krell Imperator sat on his throne of polished black stone and stared at the message repeating on the holographic display before him. The recording showed a human female in a military uniform. Her face was hard. Her eyes were colder than the void of space. And her words made his blood run chill. I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Unified Earth Resistance. Your occupation of my world has ended. Your soldiers are dead or captured. Your fleet in our system has been destroyed. This message is a warning. You attacked our home. You killed 3 billion of our people. You thought we were weak? You thought we would surrender? You were wrong. We are coming for you. Every world you have conquered, every species you have enslaved, we will free them all. And then we will come to your home world. We will show you what it means to fight a species that has nothing left to lose. You struck Earth first. Now face the consequences. The message ended. The Imperator's claws dug into the armrests of his throne. Around him, his council of war chiefs stood in shocked silence. This could not be happening. Earth was a primitive world, a single colony that should have been crushed in days. The reports said it was pacified. Under control, how many ships do they have? The Imperator demanded. His chief strategist, an old Krell named Torvin, consulted data streams. Our estimates suggest no more than 50 vessels, Imperator. Small craft by our standards. The humans have adapted our technology, but they lack the industrial capacity for a true fleet. 50 ships destroyed our entire occupation force, another council member pointed out. They wiped out 200 warships and 50,000 soldiers. These primitives are more dangerous than we believed. The Imperator stood from his throne. He was massive, even by Krell standards, his scales dark as midnight, his eyes burning with ancient pride. Then we crush them properly this time. Assemble the Grand Fleet. 5,000 warships. We will burn their world to ash. No survivors. No mercy. The humans will learn why the galaxy fears the Krell Empire. But the Imperator made the same mistake Rex had made. He underestimated what desperation and human ingenuity could accomplish. Far from the Krell homeworlds, the Phoenix fleet had grown. Sarah had not been idle in the months following Operation Phoenix. Every shipyard on Earth and in the captured Krell facilities was working at full capacity. The 12 original Phoenix-class ships had become 100, then 200. Human engineers worked around the clock, building vessels that combined Krell power with human innovation. But Sarah knew numbers alone would not win this war. The Krell had thousands of ships and countless soldiers. Humanity needed allies. And fortunately, the Krell had made enemies across the entire galaxy. Sarah stood on the bridge of her flagship, now officially named the UES Retribution. Beside her was James Richardson, promoted to admiral. On the view screen before them was a holographic representation of a being from a species called the Vex. The Vex were insectoid creatures with crystalline exoskeletons. They had been conquered by the Krell 500 years ago. Their world was strip-mined for resources. Their people were enslaved, but they had never stopped resisting. Commander Chen, the Vex representative, clicked in translated speech. Your message has spread through the underground networks of a dozen enslaved species. You offer freedom, alliance. But why should we trust humans? We have never heard of your species before, Sarah leaned forward. Because we have nothing to gain by lying. The Krell attacked us without provocation. They killed 3 billion of our people in a single day. We want revenge, yes. But more than that, we want to make sure no other species suffers what we suffered. Help us fight the Krell, and we will help you reclaim your world. The Vex was silent for a moment. Then, you speak of revenge. Of suffering? These are emotions we understand. The Krell took our world. Enslaved our children. For 500 years we have waited for someone strong enough to challenge the Empire. Perhaps you are that someone. Very well, Commander Chen. The Vex resistance will join you. We have ships hidden in the asteroid belts of our system. Weapons we have built in secret. You will have our forces. One by one, other species joined the alliance. The Tal, a race of telepaths who had been forced to serve as Krell interrogators. The Bryn warriors whose homeworld had been burned when they refused to surrender. The Kesse scientists whose research had been stolen to build Krell weapons. Each species had been broken by the Empire. Each species wanted freedom. And each saw in Sarah Chen a leader who might actually defeat the seemingly invincible Krell. Within 6 months, the Liberation Fleet, as it became known, had grown to over 3,000 ships from 20 different species. It was still smaller than the Krell Grand Fleet, but it had advantages the Krell could not match. They fight with 1,000-year-old tactics, Admiral James explained during a strategy session. They rely on overwhelming force and intimidation. They have not faced a coordinated multi-species fleet using modern combined arms doctrine. We can outmaneuver them, outthink them. We just need to choose our battles carefully. Sarah studied the galactic map. The Krell supply lines are overextended. They control too much territory with too few forces. If we hit their logistics networks, we can starve their forward positions. Force them to pull back. Free entire systems, without having to fight for them.
Oh.
She pointed to a star system on the map. This is the Kellis system. The Krell use it as a major supply hub. Munitions, fuel, food supplies, all come through here. It is defended by a garrison fleet of maybe 200 ships. If we take Kellis, we cut off 15 systems from resupply. Dr. Walsh, who had been promoted to Chief Technology Officer, added her input. Our scout ships have been studying Krell encryption. We have broken several of their communication codes. We can coordinate our attack to hit them when their guard is down. Maybe during a shift change or supply run, the plan was set. The Liberation Fleet would strike Kellis and cut the Krell supply lines. It would be their first major offensive action. Sarah knew the risks. If they failed, if the Krell destroyed her fleet, the entire resistance movement would collapse. But she also knew that playing it safe had never won wars. We move in 1 week, Sarah announced. All fleet commanders, prepare your ships and your crews. We are going to show the Krell that the age of their empire is over. The Liberation Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kellis system. 3,000 ships from 20 species, all united under human command. It was the largest coordinated multi-species fleet in recorded history. And it was about to crash into the Krell like a hammer. The Krell garrison detected them immediately. Alarms blared across the supply stations. Defense fleets scrambled to form battle lines. But the Krell commanders were confused. The fleet composition made no sense. Humans, Vex, Tal, Bryn, and a dozen other species, all flying in formation. Many of these species had been enemies of each other before the Krell conquered them. How had the humans convinced them to work together? Admiral James commanded the battle from his position on the bridge of the UES Defiance. All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha. Phoenix Wing, You are cleared for advanced strike. Vex cruisers, provide covering fire. Bryn assault ships, prepare for close engagement. The human tactical AI systems had spent months analyzing Krell battle doctrine. They knew how the enemy would respond. The Krell would form a defensive sphere around their supply stations. They would concentrate fire on the largest ships. They would try to break the fleet apart with overwhelming firepower. The Liberation fleet did not play along. The Phoenix Wing. 50 of the fastest human ships accelerated to incredible speeds and split into smaller groups. They did not charge the Krell lines. Instead, they swept around the flanks, targeting support vessels and supply ships. The Krell defensive sphere suddenly found itself under attack from multiple directions at once. The Vex cruisers, armed with plasma weapons that could overload energy shields, focused fire on Krell command ships. Their targeting was precise and devastating. Within the first 10 minutes of battle, 3 Krell command vessels were destroyed. Throwing their formations into confusion, the Bryn assault ships, built for close-range combat, used human stealth technology to slip past Krell defenses. They rammed enemy vessels or deployed boarding parties that fought with savage effectiveness. The Krell had never faced Bryn warriors who were not enslaved in fighting against their will. Free Bryn were terrifying opponents. Sarah watched the battle from the Retribution. Her ship hung back from the main engagement, acting as command and control for the entire fleet. Tactical AI systems processed millions of data points per second, identifying weaknesses in the Krell formations and suggesting strike points. Krell reinforcements jumping in from hyperspace. Her sensor officer called out, 100 additional ships. They must have called for backup. Sarah did not panic. She had expected this. Second wave. You are clear to engage. Show them what we brought. From the edges of the system, another 1,000 ships appeared. The Krell reinforcements charged forward, confident in their numerical superiority. Then the civilian fleet opened fire. Thousands of solid projectiles launched from improvised railguns. The Krell shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against simple mass traveling at extreme velocity. Ships were shredded. Hulls were punctured. The Krell reinforcements broke apart before they could even close to combat range. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Kellis system belonged to the Liberation fleet. Over 400 Krell ships were destroyed. The supply stations were captured intact. And 15 Krell-controlled systems suddenly found themselves cut off from resources. Sarah stood on the command deck of a captured supply station, looking out at the victorious fleet. Ships from 20 different species floated together in space. Former enemies united by a common goal. It should have been impossible. But humanity had made it possible. James approached her with a report. Casualty count is coming in. We lost 38 ships, mostly Bryn, assault craft, and human frigates. About 4,000 dead total. The Krell lost over 90,000 personnel. Sarah nodded slowly. 4,000 dead was a lot, but it was far less than she had feared, and they had struck a major blow against the Empire. Send a message to all the species in the Liberation fleet, Sarah said. Thank them for their courage. Tell them this is just the beginning. We will free every world the Krell have conquered. We will dismantle their empire piece by piece. She turned to look at the galactic map displayed on the station's command center. The Krell Empire stretched across hundreds of systems. It would take years to defeat them completely. Maybe decades. But Sarah had time. And she had something the Krell could never understand. She had allies who fought not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Over the following months, the Liberation fleet won battle after battle. They freed the Vex homeworld, liberating billions of enslaved workers. They broke the Krell blockade of the Tau system, allowing the telepathic species to reclaim their sacred temples. They destroyed the fortress world of Krell Prime Tertius, a base that had been considered impregnable for 1,000 years. Each victory brought more species to the cause. The Liberation fleet grew to 5,000 ships, then 8,000. Former Krell subjects brought their own knowledge and technology. Humanity's tactical innovation, combined with alien expertise, created a military force. It's unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But Sarah knew the final battle was still ahead. The Krell Imperator had assembled his grand fleet, 5,000 of the most powerful warships in the Empire. They were gathering at the Krell homeworld for a final, decisive battle. The Imperator had sent a message across the galaxy. Come to my home. Come and die. The Empire will not fall. Sarah stood before her fleet commanders in a meeting on the Retribution. Representatives from every allied species were present either in person or via hologram. The Krell have challenged us, Sarah said. They want to fight one massive battle. Winner takes all. If we win, the Empire collapses. If we lose, everything we have fought for dies with us. The tall commander projected thought speech into everyone's minds. The odds are nearly even in terms of numbers. But the Krell ships are larger and more heavily armed. They have home field advantage. This will not be an easy victory. Nothing about this war has been easy, Sarah replied. But we have something they do not. We have fought together, bled together. We are not an empire held together by fear. We are an alliance built on trust and shared purpose. That makes us stronger. She pulled up a tactical display of the Krell home system. Their fleet is positioned in a defensive formation around the planet, predictable, rigid. They expect us to charge their lines and break against their guns. We will not do that, Muriel James explained the plan. We hit them with a multi-pronged assault. Human ships will use our speed to draw out their vanguard. Vex forces will target their supply ships. Bryn warriors will board their command vessels. We break their formation and turn it into chaos. In chaos, we have the advantage. The plan was approved. The Liberation Fleet made preparations for the final battle. Ships were repaired. Weapons were loaded. Soldiers said prayers in a dozen different languages to a dozen different gods. Everyone knew that this battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. The night before the battle, Sarah sat alone in her quarters. She took out the photo of David and Michael. The edges were worn from years of handling. Their faces were still clear. Still smiling? Tomorrow, she whispered. Tomorrow it ends, one way or another. I have done everything I can. Led as well as I could. If I die tomorrow, I die knowing that I fought for you. For everyone the Krell hurt. I hope that is enough. There was a knock on her door. She quickly wiped her eyes and composed herself. Enter. Jennifer Walsh came in, holding a datapad. Commander, I have the final weapons diagnostics. Everything is operating at peak efficiency. She paused. But that is not why I came. She sat down across from Sarah. I wanted to thank you. Before the battle, in case I do not get another chance, you gave me purpose when I had none. You took a broken scientist and made me part of something important. I will never forget that. Sarah felt her throat tighten. Jennifer, you are one of the bravest people I know. You turned grief into innovation. You helped build the weapons that will free the galaxy. I should be thanking you. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jennifer stood. Get some rest, Commander. Tomorrow, we make history. After she left, Sarah tried to sleep, but her mind kept running through battle scenarios. What if the Krell had a secret weapon? What if the Alliance broke apart under pressure? What if she made the wrong call and everyone died because of it? Finally, she gave up on sleep. She walked through the ship. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Commander Chen. I am pursuing the Krell flagship. I need volunteers to join me. This will be dangerous. Anyone who comes might not return. I will not order anyone to follow. This must be your choice. For a moment, there was silence. Then every ship in the Liberation Fleet turned toward the flagship. Every single one. 8,000 vessels forming up behind the Retribution. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. These beings from 30 different species, many of whom had never even met humans before, were willing to follow her into the deadliest battle of the war. Not because they were ordered to, because they chose to. All ships, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Charge. The Liberation Fleet crashed into the Krell flagship like a tidal wave. The massive Krell vessel, larger than a city, tried to fight them all off. Its weapons fired in every direction. Dozens of Allied ships exploded. But for every ship that fell, 2 more took its place. The Retribution flew straight at the flagship's bridge. Krell point defense weapons tore at its armor. Systems failed. Hull breaches vented atmosphere. Sarah held her course, braced for impact. She shouted. The Retribution rammed the flagship at full speed. The collision was catastrophic. Both ships shook violently. The Retribution's forward section crumpled like paper, but it had created a breach. Away inside. Boarding teams go. Sarah commanded human marines and Bryn warriors flooded through the breach. They fought through corridors and chambers, pushing toward the flagship's command center. The Krell fought desperately, but the combined assault was unstoppable. Sarah led from the front. She had not fired a weapon in combat in years, but she remembered her training. She moved with her soldiers, plasma rifle in hand, fighting through the Krell ship. Around her, soldiers from a dozen species worked in perfect coordination, covering each other, protecting each other. Fighting as one, they reached the command center. The doors were sealed, reinforced blast doors that could withstand ship weapons. A tall engineer used telekinetic abilities to tear the doors apart. The Bryn warriors charged through, and there, on a command throne surrounded by his dying fleet, sat the Krell Imperator. He was massive and proud, even in defeat. His scales were scarred from 1,000 battles. His eyes burned with ancient fury. When he saw Sarah, he stood. So, he said in perfect English, translated by implants, "The human who destroyed my empire. Come to kill me yourself?" Sarah raised her weapon. "Your empire destroyed itself. You conquered through fear and cruelty. You made enemies of everyone you touched. I just gave those enemies a reason to unite." The Imperator laughed bitterly. "Unite, your alliance will not last. Once I am gone, your species will turn on each other. It is the way of the universe. The strong dominate. The weak serve. That is eternal law." "No," Sarah said firmly. "That is just what you tell yourself to justify your cruelty. We proved you wrong. 30 species working together. Not because they fear each other, but because they choose to cooperate. That is stronger than any empire built on conquest." She lowered her weapon slightly. "You could have ruled through cooperation. Through mutual benefit, you could have built something beautiful. Instead, you built an empire of suffering. And now, it is over." The Imperator looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached for a hidden weapon. Sarah fired first. The plasma bolt struck him in the chest. The ancient emperor fell, his reign ending not in glory, but in the ruins of his own mistakes. The battle ended within the hour. With their command structure destroyed and their Imperator dead, the Krell forces surrendered. The Grand Fleet was captured intact. The homeworld was liberated. The empire that had ruled for 3,000 years collapsed in a single day. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the damaged Retribution, looking out at the liberated Krell homeworld. The planet's population had not been responsible for their empire's crimes. They had simply lived under its rule. Now they would have to learn what it meant to be equals rather than masters. Admiral James approached her. His uniform was torn and bloody, but he was alive. "Commander, the fleet is assembling. Everyone wants to know what comes next. Do we occupy Krell worlds? Establish military rule?" Sarah shook her head. "No, that would make us conquerors. We fought to free people, not to rule them. Each world decides its own future. We help rebuild. Establish trade relationships. Create a galactic council where every species has a voice. That is what we fought for. And Earth?" James asked. "What about humanity? We started this war. We led the liberation. Surely we deserve some recognition."
Out.
"Earth will be fine. We proved we can survive. That is recognition enough. We do not need to be in charge. We just need to be free." She looked at the assembled fleet. So many species working together, so much potential for a better future, but also so much work ahead. "Send a message to Earth," Sarah said. "Tell them the war is over. We won. Now comes the hard part. Building a peace that lasts." 3 months later, Sarah Chen stood in a garden on Earth. It was built on the site where Buenos Aires used to be. Trees had been planted in the ruins. Flowers grew where buildings had burned. Life returning to a scarred world, she held the photo of David and Michael in her hands. The edges were worn almost smooth from years of touching. She knelt and placed the photo at the base of a memorial stone. On the stone were 2 names among millions. "It is finished," she whispered. "The Krell are defeated. Their empire is gone. Species are free. I kept my promise. I made them pay for what they did. But more than that, I made sure no one else would suffer the same fate." She touched the stone gently. "I hope you are proud of me. I hope I did right by your memory. I tried to stay human, even when I wanted to become a monster. I tried to build something instead of just destroying." The sun set over the garden, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Sarah Chen, the woman who had led the galaxy to freedom, sat in the growing darkness, surrounded by the names of the fallen. She had been a mother, a wife, a soldier, a commander. She had been many things. But most of all, she had been human, flawed and grieving and angry, but also hopeful and determined and unwilling to quit. The Krell had struck Earth first. They had thought it would be an easy conquest. They had been wrong, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson they learned. You can destroy a human city. You can kill a human family. You can burn a human world, but you cannot break the human spirit. And if you strike Earth first, you will learn what it means to face a species that fights not just for victory, but for the memory of everyone they lost. The war was over. The Empire had fallen, and humanity stood among the stars, not as conquerors, but as proof that hope could survive even the darkest night. Sarah stood and walked away from the memorial. Behind her, the names of the fallen glowed softly in the fading light. Ahead of her, the future waited, uncertain, challenging, but free, and that was worth everything.